Hello there, and welcome to Disney Dreamlight Valley. Guys, I think I know what's going on. I think I know why some of you are not placing as high as you think your submission deserves in Dreamsnaps, and sometimes vice versa. When you don't think that your submission was that great, you place higher than I thought you would. I've been thinking about this long and hard for a long time, and I even ran some data. I've done some research. I've ran some numbers. Oh my god, this is adorable. This is adorable. Somebody take a screenshot. So basically in this video, I'm going to go through some numbers, some data that I've collected, and I'm going to tell you my theory. Once again, it's not confirmed by any means, but I think I'm pretty confident this is exactly what makes Dreamsnaps have weird results sometimes. And I have very simple and easy fix how to solve this problem and make sure the Dreamsnaps are as fair as they can be. Let's jump right into it. So I made a post recently on my community wall. How many pictures do you usually vote on for Dreamsnaps every week? And results were actually about the same as I expected. 7% of people don't vote. 19% of people vote from 1 to 10, basically just to get free Moonstone. So I'm going to assume 10. 54, which is vast majority of people, do a little bit extra that's required, between 11 and 50. 15% goes pretty hard and does 51 to 100, and 4% just votes 100 times plus, lots of times. I myself would place into this category. I definitely vote between 50 and 100. Sometimes maybe even more than 100, but on average, I would estimate I usually land in about this range. Now, why is this important? So here comes my theory, how Dreamsnap voting works. Once again, just a theory. There is no way to know exactly how it's coded. But from all my experience and other people's experience, this is how I think it works. When you vote, you get certain algorithm picks out 2 images from the giant database of everybody who submitted their images and shows them to you. From observation, there's a few things that affect what images get shown to you. It's very often where people, images in the outfit, god damn it, I can't speak. Your character is wearing the similar or even identical outfits. Not all the time, but it's a pretty common occurrence that you can probably confidently say that there is something that decides to pair certain images that have very similar outfits when possible. Not all the time, but it happens way too often to just be a coincidence. Second of all, the logic says that there is probably some sort of a counter of how many times every single picture gets voted on. And in order to preserve the fairness of the voting process, there has to be about equal amount of times that each picture gets shown and gets voted on. So every time you vote on a picture, both pictures, let's assume that both pictures that you've just seen has their vote counter go up by 1. Basically, by not voting for another picture, you still increase its vote counter because that picture was part of the vote. And the game will try to serve you 2 photos that have on some of the lowest vote counters. Once again, that's just a speculation, but that's what makes sense. That's the only way to ensure that the Dreamsnap voting is fair, that every single photo has equal amount of chances. Now, with these 2 things, let's just say they're true. They make the most sense. So first of all, the game shows us similar images as often as possible. Similar by outfit. I would even argue sometimes certain furniture items can be used as well. For example, 2 photos that use the same furniture item in it. Sometimes they would be shown to you as well. Just I feel like they do it just to make it slightly more fair, but I still feel like the counter should be absolutely the most important parameter. So the game is going to try to get the least voted photos, and if it can find 2 photos that are on the bottom of the list with the least amount of votes that have the same outfit or similar in any other way, it will give you those photos. If it cannot find 2 similar ones, it will give you potentially just 2 photos that have the least amount of votes. Now, one thing that I don't believe is currently happening during the voting process is any sort of tier system or any sort of ranking, which means basically that you can get absolutely any 2 photos get pitted against each other while voting, which on one hand makes it extremely fair, but on the other hand, it creates a big problem, and we're going to talk about it in a second. So, just once again to reiterate, it's just my theory, something that I've observed and something that other people suggested, and none of this is officially confirmed, but it just makes sense to me. And let me know in the comments if you have a different theory about how Dreamsnap serving you pictures for voting. Now, there's a whole separate issue about the photos from previous submissions sometimes getting pulled out. Let's not go into it in this video. It's not related to what we're trying to figure out, and that's like a whole separate can of worms. Okay, with that established, now why is it important how many times people vote? Well, because the more times your image shows up against other images, the more fair the voting process is going to be. And let me explain to you why. First of all, I want to try to extrapolate this data towards the entire Disney Dreamlight Valley community and try to estimate approximately how many times each photo gets voted on during each Dreamsnap process. Now, this is going to be a tough part. So I did some napkin math on it, and basically, the easiest formula that I can understand and that I think can help us estimate the number of votes each photo gets is basically we take this data and we extrapolate it to the entire community, which we will assume is 100,000. I think this is a rough amount of submissions we get every single week. It could be more, it could be less, but you will see in the formula it doesn't really matter because the amount of total entries gets cancelled out in the end. The point is, in order to calculate the average amount of votes each photo will receive, I'm going to take every single range and I will take the upper limit to be as non-biased as possible. We're going to do the best case scenario. And I'm even willing to extrapolate this data to the entire community, even though this is like the top of the top, the most active members of the community that that voted in this poll. Because, well, clearly, if you are watching YouTube and you are participating in Dreamsnaps, you're going to be definitely in top, I don't know, 10% of the most active players. By extrapolating this data to the rest of the community, I'm basically assuming that the entire player base is behaving the same way as the most active part, which is not fair. So we're taking like the best of the best scenario. This is the result we're gonna get is probably gonna be way higher than it really is, but it's gonna give us even the highest possible result. Should still shed some light on what's going on. All right, so here's my calculator. So the formula here is going to be, I'm basically gonna take the percentages and the upper range, and since I'm gonna throw the formula on the screen. X in this case is going to be the number of people who actively participate in Dreamsnaps. I'm gonna also assume one thing here, that every single person who submits something on a Dreamsnap is also going to do voting. And I'm assuming that most of the people who don't submit Dreamsnaps are not gonna do any voting. There is also going to be people who don't submit but vote, but there's also going to be people who submit and don't vote, and I think those people are going to cancel themselves out, especially considering that the rest of the community is probably not as active, so we're just trying to get an estimated number. So here is going to be the final formula. We're going to go with 7%. This is the number we got. 51.9. Here's the formula. Pretty much the whole thing just added up with the percentages. In case you want to check my math, it's, once again, it's such a rough approximation that it's not even funny, but it gives us a good idea. So 51.9. So let's make it even more best case scenario. Let's make it 60. Let's assume every picture. That kind of puts it in perspective. You would think it's much more. Oh, also don't forget to multiply it by 2. Because each vote basically gives a vote to 2 pictures. So 120. Each picture gets voted on 120 times. Let's just assume this. You didn't even have to do this math. You could just say, let's assume. But that's actually way lower than most of us can actually think. And this is best case. I doubt there's even 100 votes per photo during each season. So, what does that mean? Number one, my submissions potentially only get 100 votes, and the chances of those 100 votes, to even one of them, to be among a couple thousand people that watch my stream, let's calculate it. So from my calculations, statistically, less than 2% of the votes that my submission receives could be from my viewers. And if we assume that all of them are positive, that literally means only 1 or 2 people get to vote on my submission per season, versus like 100 people that have never seen my submission. So that's besides the point. What this actually means is that since there's no ranking system, your picture can go against absolutely any other picture. And let's be honest, a lot of pictures in Dreamsnaps are terrible. Most of them are terrible because people just want 300 moonstones and they just submit whatever random stuff they're into. Some of them might be not as good because people don't have a lot of cool items. Some of them might not be as good because people it's maybe their first submission, they're not entirely sure what they're doing. It's not important. I think it's safe to assume that probably half of the submissions every season do not even fit the theme. So you can basically go against those images that completely do not match the theme and very low effort images, or you can go against some of the best submissions in the game. And once again, I'm not going to go deep into the math. I used to be good at math, but not anymore. But you can imagine that random is such a fickle thing, because let's assume your image gets shown against 120 images. Best case scenario, I can guarantee it's less than 100 on average. But let's take 120. 120 times you have a chance to be paired against a low-level submission or against a high-level submission. So some random amount of you, are going to be mostly paired against weaker submissions, while some of you will get unlucky because random. Some of you will get unlucky, and most of your pairings are going to be versus some of the top submissions. And in the end, let's take a look. Let's take 2 submissions. Both of them are absolutely ridiculously beautiful. One of them was paired 100 times versus bad submissions and 20 times versus good submissions. The other one was paired 100 times versus good submissions and 20 times versus bad submissions. In the end, what we get is that both submissions, even though they're objectively equally good, they're gonna get insanely different percentage of votes that they receive because of random. So some people will be favored by random by making a photo appear against weaker submissions, but some of you will get screwed, and there is nothing you can do because it's completely random. So does it mean that Dreamsnaps are actually random? Well, yes and no, but mostly yes. There is way too much randomness in it. Let's take a look at every single factor that makes Dreamsnaps random. Number one, what we just discussed, you getting paired versus random submissions from other people. You can get lucky. get paired against bad ones, or you can get unlucky, get paired against a lot of good ones. This is number one. Number two, people do vote randomly sometimes. It just happens. I've seen people admitting to it on Reddit and getting multiple upvotes, which means a lot of people just randomly click on, for example, they just click 10 times on the right image and they're done. They got their 50 moonstones, and you might have gotten blessed. You might have gotten actually a free vote from that. Or you might have getting screwed and didn't even get a fair chance. All right, those two things are enough. That's already enough random to make it very, very variable how good your result can be depending on just these two random factors. So does it mean that you shouldn't even try if it's random? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because I still believe that really good submissions would not, they will not rank very low. In my opinion, submission that won the Dreamsnap could easily end up in a range between 2,500 and 12,000 because of the random factors. If everything went completely wrong and all the random factors were stacked against you, your submission that won the Dreamsnap could have ended up just getting 2,500 moonstones. That's how high the swing of random is. So your submission will probably score, I would say on average, 5,000 ranks higher or 5,000 ranks lower, maybe even more, maybe even 10,000 than it actually deserves to be. So the random swing is huge, but it's still limited. Which means if you have an absolutely insanely good submission, it cannot get 300 moonstones because it might get 1,500 even though you think it deserves 4,000, or it might get first place. If people who, and not to take away from people who won Dreamsnaps or did extremely well, you guys did get blessed by random. And it's fine. There's nothing we can do to control it. Actually, there is a few things we can do, and I'll talk to it in a minute. There's actually a few ways you can make Dreamsnaps much more fair and counteract these things. So because of amount of votes each picture gets is so incredibly low, 100 votes, that's nothing. In 100 votes, one vote going the other way can actually knock you down a couple hundred ranks. And considering how easy it is for that vote to go against you because of the random factors or because of you just getting stacked against some incredibly good submissions, your rank can, you can be absolutely right if you think you deserve to get a high rating because you just probably got screwed by random. Or if you think you did way too good for your submission, it is also possible that random carried you forward this time. In the end of the day, I feel like it still balances itself out. Sometimes you will do better than you think, sometimes you will do worse than you think, and we just discovered exactly why, in my opinion, it happened. So if you didn't do well this week and you feel like you should have done way better, just consider what we just talked about, and consider that next week the luck might be on your side and the random will push you way further than you even expected. That's how I got rank 11 on one of my mediocre submissions, and that's how I got only 1,500 moonstones on my favorite submission of all times. Because random just decided to favor me once, and then didn't favor me the second time. But I think it's still possible to consistently get good results. I think it's nearly impossible to get 4,000 moonstones every single week, because you have to be making absolutely godly submissions, and still the random swing is so high. Even for the best submission, like subjectively the best, if you make the best submission in the entire game every single week, just that random factor can swing you a couple thousand ranks down, and you can end up getting 2,500 moonstones couple weeks. It doesn't mean your submission is worse or then it's rigged. It's just random. Okay, so now let's talk about how we fix it. There is two things we can do to actually make it better. Number one, increase the amount of votes that give you moonstones. The biggest problem, in my opinion, in randomness in Dreamsnaps is the low amount of voting that people do. If we could get that number from 100 to 1,000, it's gonna be much more fair and balanced. Each the random swing would get so much smaller. So instead of swinging 5,000 either way, your submission might swing 1,000 either way, which would give you more consistent and fair results overall. So what I would do, let's say not 10 votes per week to get 50 moonstones. Make it 50 votes. Each vote equal 1 moonstone, and it doesn't take that long to do 50 votes. I'm sure if people are incentivized to do votes, they will do it. And then make it like, for example, 50 votes, you get 1 moonstone each. Then once you hit 50, give us a random furniture pouch. And then make another reward, let's say at 100 votes, 150 votes. Make it milestones. So people who really want to vote, but just don't feel like it's worth it, their time, they could do 100, 150, 200 votes and potentially get a furniture pouch on every step of the way. I feel like furniture pouches are so, like, underwhelming in terms of being a reward. It doesn't make it sound too OP, but it's still something that you can offer people for doing a lot of votes. That's number one thing. However, you might argue, what if people just click on the right picture 100 times just to claim the reward? Well, there is an easy way to fix this. Introduce a timer. Let's say right now I go to vote. I can literally just, I'm not gonna do it, but I just want to show you. You can literally just vote on the right picture. Just keep clicking on it, like you don't even have to look at it. But what if there was a timer? What if you had to look at the picture for, I don't know, 5 seconds or 10 seconds, I don't know, certain amount of seconds, and before you can actually press vote button? Just make it like a little timer to force people to actually pay attention to what they're voting to. Make us look at the images for at least 5 seconds. I feel like 5 seconds is the absolute minimum that you should force people to look at the submissions before you're allowed to vote for them. I mean, granted, people can still just click every 5 seconds. So make it 10 seconds. I don't know. I feel like people not looking at what they're voting or judging the images way too soon before even realizing what they're looking at is one of the biggest random factors in the game. And by introducing the cooldown for your vote button, which should be, my guess would be 10 seconds. I feel like it's fair. If you look at 2 images for 10 seconds, you're way more likely to make way better decision than if you're just speed voting or just randomly voting for a certain image. It's not going to completely solve the issue, but I feel like it would force majority of people who do this be way more fair in their votings. And they're going to vote more as well. Even if it's 10 seconds per vote, it's going to take you, in 10 minutes, you can do 60 votes, which is really good. I think 60 votes, you would get your 50 moonstones. You would make the results way more fair. Hi, I'm editing this video and I just realized that I completely forgot to mention the third way how you can fix this. And in my opinion, this is the best possible way. And it can be implemented in addition to first 2 ways, but I think it's important to have some sort of a ranking system when you vote. Some rank, like a temporary rank that can be used to pair images against each other. For example, you can use the vote rate. If 2 pictures getting a lot of votes versus their opponents, for example, they get 80% vote percentage, just pair them against each other. Use that vote percentage as an indication of photos being in a similar league. So, for example, photos that barely get any upvotes just get pitted against each other, so they can battle it out and somebody will get a little bit higher. But photos that get a lot of upvotes, pit them against each other as well. Make sure that it's a fair competition. I feel like it's going to be so much better if good pictures get pitted against each other, and then slightly worse pictures get pitted against each other, and so forth. So once a photo becomes very popular, find another popular photo and let somebody vote in between them. This is it. This is all I got. 2 ways to fix the randomness in Dreamsnaps, and hopefully this sheds some light on why you do way better or worse sometimes than you expect. Sometimes you might be just too committed to your idea and not realize its flaws. Like, there's a lot of other factors that affect. It's not every time that you scored lower than you thought. It's not always the randomness. Sometimes you might be just too biased against your own submission. That is also possible. But I feel like the random factor is too big to ignore, and there is simple ways to fix it, and we should definitely fix it to make it a more fun experience. More fun and fair experience for everybody. Wow, that was a long video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing your opinion on my opinion, because this is just a theory. A game theory. Thank you so much for watching. You're going to be very happy to hear that I finally fixed the screen, the supporter screen. Now everything is... I found... I've spent like 2 hours looking for an issue, and I found some deep issues with my code, and I changed everything, and now it's flawless. Now everything is sorted by how long you've been a member. There is no weird glitches with member badge where it's like the top tier member badge just appearing out of nowhere. Everything was fixed and sorted. Everybody's placed exactly where they belong. Thank you so much, guys, for all the support. This is incredible. Now the screen is fully fixed, so you can be sure that your name is gonna appear exactly where it needs to appear. Also, thank you so much for all of our Discord boosters. We have so many boosters right now. We've never had this many. And thank you so much to all our awesome admins and mods for keeping the Discord server alive, which, by the way, the link is in description. We would love to have you. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.